Hey everyone, my name's Justin, president here at G&D Chillers, and we haven't been able to get out on the road with our trade shows as much as we'd like to these days, so we thought today we would go through a handful of our chillers here that we use primarily in the brewing industry. We start with our dual stage chiller here that is one of our most common chillers. We might have our much larger vertical air series chiller here, and then our smaller micro series chiller here that today we'd just like to go over and some of the details and answer some of the questions you may have. So one of the first questions everybody asks is, what size chiller do I need? How do I know what size chiller do I need? We've been building chillers now for almost 30 years, and we've come up with a fairly sophisticated program that we've developed over sizing different tanks and different inlet and outlet temperatures on those tanks, and we're able to put in the size of tank and barrel, whether you're in active fermentation or you're crashing your tank or how you're knocking out your wort, and we can put all those numbers in there and come up with an accurate BTU load to properly size which one of these chillers behind me would work best for you guys. So let me show you some of the differences with the chillers behind us. Let's start with the smallest of the three. This is our micro series chiller. We've been building this chiller for, gosh, almost 25 years now. One of the benefits of buying a chiller from G&D is that it's a complete package. So it's got all the components you need. There's no external plumbing that you need to do with the chiller. You're going to have supply and return connections and electrical connections on this end. That's true with all three of these units. This chiller is our smallest. Like I said, it's going to have one compressor, our chiller process pump, the control panel, a simple digital controller for you to set the temperature. So it's a very simple, clean package, but it's built with all the same industrial components as all these other two chillers here. Jumping to the larger unit, one of the larger chillers that we build, as you can see, there's two larger compressors in here. These are semi-hermetic reciprocating compressors. They are both working together to cool a reservoir that's actually installed behind this chiller here. There's a stainless steel reservoir, and as you can see here, there's much larger pumps. There's a chiller recirculation pump and then a large process pump. Both of these motors are high efficiency motors. These are extremely efficient compressors with unloading capabilities. So this is going to be for more of a large scale production facility chiller. Then jumping to this unit, this is our dual stage chiller. This chiller has two of the same compressors that you see over there. What this allows you to do is stage on cooling as you need it. So a lot of situations in a brewery, your load is going to fluctuate up and down, especially if you're knocking out wort with your chiller. This allows one compressor to come on when that's needed, and then that other compressor will cycle off. They'll alternate for equal runtime. The other benefit to this is if there was ever an issue with a fan motor or something with one refrigeration circuit, the other one would still operate. That's something unique to G&D. It gives you 50% redundancy that way, and it's very important in production facilities. This is probably one of our most common units. We build this unit in this size and then a step up, and then of course jumping to this functions the exact same way. So that's kind of the different overview of these three models. So one thing we at G&D always try to take into consideration is growth. And all our chillers have auxiliary ports on the reservoirs. Now, there's limitations to how far you can take some of that growth within that particular chiller, but they all are modular to a certain degree. We do have specific chillers that we call our modular series chillers, which have a larger glycol reservoir and are set up when we know growth is going to be done right out of the gate. But if something happens and you end up growing faster than you thought, all of these chillers do have the ability to add a second chiller module to, but having a chiller that you can add to definitely saves you money up front. So once we decide what size chiller you need, we need to start finding out where are you going to locate this chiller within the brewery. As you can see, there's a pretty good size difference between each one of these units. So we need to take a few things into account once we get the size of chiller, where that's going to go. There's some important things to understand. We've got airflow that's going through the condenser of these chillers. This one happens to be going up, this one happens to be going horizontally. So we need to make sure that there's clear access for that air to escape so the chiller operates properly. The chillers that you see behind me all are going to want to live outside so they can breathe fresh air. We do have smaller size chillers, and depending on the size of your building and the space that it may go in, you could potentially put those size of chillers inside. So if your chiller goes down, you're not making money. And one of the things that we really stress is redundancy on all of our brewery chillers. So like I said, on this chiller here, much smaller scale, we do have one compressor. You don't have the level of redundancy you would, but when you jump into something like this, or even this smaller dual stage chiller, you have redundancy with having two compressors there that are completely independent of each other. They are not relied on one or the other to run. So if something happens with one, you still have 50% redundancy to get you through until the repair can be made. So one of the questions we get a lot of is why buy a chiller from G&D and what are the benefits? So starting off, we've been in business for 30 years. We started in the wine industry and right away grew into the beer industry. So we know the industry. We've been building partnerships across the country for now almost 30 years. We have 2,000 breweries around the country. So we know what goes into putting in that brewery. So with that, we know how to design the chiller properly. So like I said, redundancy is huge. Having a chiller that's built here as a complete package and nothing built on site allows us to run it in our run station, completely dial it in so that it's operating properly before it even leaves here. So when you get it, there's no monkeying around with refrigeration piping or charging the system. It's ready to go. That's a huge thing because we can dial it in and you're not spending time in the field. The other thing is quality control. We have really strict quality control around here. We run test every unit, like I said. Everything goes through a check with our electrical system, our refrigeration system. As I said, there's a reservoir back here. We've got our pump, so we're able to check everything for leaks. One of the biggest things too is spending the time up front and really understanding where your business is going to start and where it's going to grow to, and allowing us to properly size the unit right out of the gate. One of the reasons we've been able to grow is our desire to partner with all of our customers. As we've gotten bigger, obviously we've had more customers out there, but it's still just as important for each and every day for us to build partnerships with our customer. And being able to provide the service after the sale, that is the most important. So if you have an issue with your chiller, being able to pick up the phone 24/7 and call one of our techs, we're always available. And even if you just have a question during the day about something that's coming up, either with the chiller or you have a future plan to add a tank, how you want to add that tank, how you want to plumb that tank, we have technicians here to answer those questions. And it's very, very important for us to keep that as our motto with our company, to partner with our end user. With all equipment, maintenance is important, and proper maintenance to any one of these chillers is key to the longevity of the chiller. One nice thing though, as long as someone's keeping an eye on it every month, there's really not a lot to do. There's a few points on our larger chillers that need greased. I would say the number one thing to keep an eye on is the condenser and keeping it clean depending on where you're at. Sometimes there's a lot of cottonwood, there's a lot of dust or debris or grain from your silo that is notorious for sucking into the condenser. So condenser cleaning, general maintenance, greasing. I always try to tell people, build a relationship with a local technician, have them come out once a year. It's cheap insurance. We have a very large network of technicians around the country that we're happy to refer, but we obviously always like to make new friends with the service industry and willing to talk to any technician that you may have. There are other chiller manufacturers out there, but I think one of the things that sets us apart from them is we strive to not have any proprietary parts on our chiller. So we came from the service industry when the company was founded, and one of the most frustrating things is for a service technician is to come up to a piece of equipment and have some oddball part or proprietary component that you have to go back to the manufacturer before you can even get the chiller back online. So we understand the need to get something fixed quickly, which is why we don't use anything that's proprietary back to G&D. We do stock all of the parts. We have stocking warehouses around the country. Nothing can't be found at any local parts warehouse. Come down to fan motors, pumps, breakers, all our electrical components. There's nothing proprietary to G&D, and that's really important for us because we know how important it is for you guys. G&D prides ourselves on knowing the industry and knowing our product and how to integrate that product to the application. So one thing we will offer free of charge with the purchase of any one of our chillers is piping design. That's a big cost and a big part of adding a chiller. The chiller's one thing, but we need to get the chiller hooked up to all the vessels. We have a team of engineers in-house. We will design your piping, what line size, how to route the pipe, free of charge. We also have a handful of different products that we can recommend and sell. There's PVC products or ABS products or stainless steel. How to insulate it, how to install it, how to hang it will work with the end user or the mechanical contractor or plumber on site and help you get the job done right. So we've talked about these 3 standard units. We do have a handful more in our product line that are standard units. We do have the ability to customize chillers. Sometimes you're building a brewery in a downtown situation where it's an old historic building and a standard off-the-shelf package chiller is just not going to work. One thing that's pretty cool with G&D is we have the ability to customize units, split condensers off the chiller if there's a space issue and we need to put the chiller inside, but you need a large chiller and you just can't put the whole thing inside. Custom reservoirs, custom pumps, different flow rates are required in certain situations. So we have that ability to still modify and customize any one of our chillers. One thing that comes up a lot in the brewing industry when it comes down to the actual chiller itself and what are maybe make something like a glycol chiller built for a brewery different from, say, an air conditioning chiller is the compressor. So the 2 main type of compressors that you'll see a lot of times within chilling industry is a scroll compressor and a reciprocating compressor. All 3 of these chillers use reciprocating compressors. The scroll compressor we build chillers with as well, but those are designed more for air conditioning and higher temp applications. They're a great compressor, but when it comes to chiller applications, process cooling in a brewery where we're running much lower temperatures, the reciprocating compressor is the most efficient and most robust style of compressor. So we use reciprocating compressors just for that reason. One question that's come up quite often over the last 3 or 4 years is, can I use the chiller to cool my cold box or for keg storage? And the answer is yes. There's pluses and minuses in doing that. I would say sometimes if you just have a smaller chiller with 1 compressor and you're going to use that for your cellar and your cold box, you're kind of putting all your eggs in one basket. Where if you jump to a chiller with 2 compressors, you've got, like I said earlier, the redundancy to stage those on and off and have that backup. So I would always encourage people to have the redundancy before I did the cold box. The cold box can either be done with glycol, which is pumping cold glycol through a fan coil just like you would a conventional system, or direct refrigeration. There's definitely some cost savings that can be had by using the chiller if we're not having to oversize the chiller so much to compensate for that cold box. So the short answer is yes, it makes a lot of sense most of the time, but we just need to take each application one by one and decide if it makes the most sense. With our control panels, where you're actually going to hook the power to our chiller, we try to make it as simple as possible. And again, getting back to proprietary parts, there's nothing in our control panels that are proprietary. One thing that we do differently than a lot of other chiller manufacturers is we use circuit breakers instead of fuses. There's nothing wrong with fuses. They protect motors just like a circuit breaker, but with a circuit breaker you have a little bit more level of sensitivity and protection against bad power brownouts, 3-phase dropouts. But the other big plus is it's inevitably going to happen at 5 o'clock on a Friday. With a circuit breaker, you can reset it once the power gets cleaned up. So having fuses and pop and trying to scramble around for fuses, that's a big thing. It adds more cost to the chiller, but we've always done it and we feel it's a very important thing to do. With all 3 chiller models here, we use the same controller. It's a very simple to operate, designed for refrigeration applications. And one cool thing is it has the ability to have a network cable brought to it, tied into your network at your facility, and allows you to monitor the chiller anywhere you have internet, and allows us to log into it and check your chiller out remotely. That's a really cool feature. It's been available on our larger chillers for quite a while now, and in the last couple of years it's now available on both these units as a standard feature. So control-wise, non-proprietary, very simple to operate, very easy for your electrician. They're all ETL listed control panels for Canada and the US. I hope this was helpful. Please don't hesitate to give us a call or shoot us an email anytime. We pride ourselves on customer service and the knowledge of our product. We're happy to help anytime. Cheers.